How's it going, everyone? Welcome to this first video about the front-end system design, which is a natural step once you learn the JavaScript, this language that allows you to now bring interactivity to the browsers, which is all of this user input that you can define so now the users can interact with, okay? And how you can make it much more easy to do that, to build, maintain, and scale, allegedly, using React, as well as all of these tools that are built around this ecosystem or this particular library that allows to build is this user interface. And once we know all of that, whether it's JavaScript as well as now TypeScript, which allows us to now build all of these applications in JavaScript, build all of this interactivity in a way that is much more easy to maintain, scale, where now we can benefit from the typings, which is what is the shape of this data that is going to look like. But it comes with some trade-off. And then with React, which is the way how we define its user interface, at least based on the Facebook team, software engineering, when they create this particular tool. So now we're going to look at the front-end system design. And you may wonder, why is this? Because eventually what is to create is now features. We, as an engineer, as a software engineer or as an engineer, that's what you want to build after all. You want to build is features. You want this to build. And because of that, it makes a lot of sense to actually have a particular way to know how to do that. A system design, front-end system design. So this is a course taught by I would like to pronounce this right. Evgeny Ray, Evgeny, I think is the way how you pronounce that. Evgeny Ray, which is a staff UI engineering that worked previously at Facebook, and now he's going to actually show up what are the things, especially when you need to provide these particular features to clients as a way to solve and provide to cover some business use cases. So yeah, this is it. We're gonna look at this intro or the preview, take out of the take the relative thing from this particular preview, and then we're gonna dive deep into the course, which is of course lay out the foundations of all of this model. And in today's video, I would like to also look at not only the introduction but also the core fundamentals, which is all of this. So with that, let's get into this. As a way to now, this is a particular pattern that we're gonna have here. Here, this the structure here is now is if ni ray, right? So if ni ray. In backend engineering, where I soon discovered a passion for the dynamic and fast-paced world of JavaScript and UI engineering, I had a chance to work at JetBrains, which allowed me to contribute significantly to developing exceptional tooling for software engineering and crafting UI applications, focusing on user experience and performance. I strongly believe in the power of knowledge being accessible to all. This led me to start my own YouTube channel in my spare time and share content on front-end engineering, particularly in design complex systems and web performance. Yeah. actually it is. Yifni, 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 Efni, Yifni. All right. Yifni Ray. All right. There you got it. Okay. Yifni Ray. And we got now this already scheduled to begin today, 24/24. end date, we have now an end date by the, how do you put it, by 9/9, which means that within 2 weeks, right? In this case will be September 9. And yeah, so let's get into this. Evening Ray.
Hi, my name is Evgeny Ray, and I work as a front-end engineer. I created this course because UI engineers need to understand the fundamentals of system design to build complex large-scale apps.
He mentioned something that is true and resonate with me. UI developers need to know the...
Hi, my name is Evgeny Ray, and I work as a front-end engineer. I created this course because UI engineers need to understand the fundamentals of system design to...
So the goal of this course, UI engineering.
Hi, my name is Evgeny Ray, and I work as a front-end engineer. I created this course because UI engineers need to understand the fundamentals of system design to...
So UI engineers needs to understand the fundamentals of user design. All right?
To build complex large-scale apps. Of system design to build complex... This course because UI engineers need to understand the fundamentals of system design.
Exactly. The fundamental of system design in complex
design to build complex large-scale apps.
To build complex.
Hi, my name is Evgeny Ray, and I work as a front-end engineer. I created this course because UI engineers need to understand the fundamentals of system design to build complex large-scale apps.
To build complex. What is that, man? I can better.
Complex large-scale apps.
Okay. Complex large-scale apps. Yep.
In this course, I will cover the fundamentals of how the browser works. DOM API.
Exactly. So UI engineers need to understand, engineers in plural. UI engineers need to understand the fundamental of system design to build complex large-scale apps. So the specific goals, okay. Exactly. So the specific goals are
the Observer API and the fundamentals of system design to build complex large-scale apps. In this course, I will cover the fundamentals of how the browser works. DOM API.
Okay. It's like how the browser works. DOM API.
The Observer API.
Again, this is Observer API. This is very narrow specific.
And how to build virtual lists. Application.
Okay. How to build virtual lists.
Application state pattern.
Application state pattern.
Networking patterns. Performance to cover the fundamentals of how the browser works. DOM API, the Observer API, and how to build virtual lists. Application state pattern. Networking patterns.
Networking patterns.
Performance.
Exactly. Networking patterns. And this is interesting because from the backend perspective, of course, and I get it why he transitioned to UI. In my case, is I'm transitioning is to again, I'm polishing my skill here with the front end as a way to be a UI design UI engineering, because at the end of the day I'm working directly with the browser, in this particular context with React, with JavaScript, okay? And why it's important to actually, in my case, know how all of these things, especially how the backend works, as a way to now have a more comprehensive understanding of how all of these things fit together. And I get it why Yevgeny Ray, developed that sense. It's like, okay, I started my career as a back engineer, but also I need to look at what in the F is the front end doing, you know, and that leads to actually, well, today's video.
Optimization. And in the end, we'll do a mock system design interview building a social news.
And then a mock system design.
With this,
Okay, and then a mock system designs to build a what? And then a mock system design to build a social media newsfeed. Mock system design to build a mock system designs to build a social media newsfeed. All right.
knowledge, you'll be able to understand how to build scalable web applications.
I like it. So with all of this knowledge, you'll be able to build a scalable. Exactly. With all of this knowledge, you'll be able to build web application. Okay. With all of this knowledge, you will be able to understand how to build. Exactly. With all of this knowledge, you will be able to understand how to build scalable. Hey, come on, man. What? How to build. Okay, how to build scalable web app. Web apps. It does include is in the front, in the back end. All right.
So let's have a quick example of the non-optimized pipeline where we utilize the style, layout, paint, and composite phase.
Okay, so let me actually is now define here the table of content here by looking at that what is our particularly pattern here, or this is structure as a way to do the specific goal, what's company I'm looking for. I think this is, yeah, not only for that but also for individuals, what skills company are looking for, as a way just to recap this, the analytical skills, your technical communication. How can I implement based on your based on your explanations, can I implement your approach? Okay. And the other is engineering best practice, soft skills. You have patience, you're empathetic, and language and computer science experience as well. So, and then we're gonna see is the core structure here. Like so. So the core structure, particularly here, in this case, is you got the introduction, here. The introduction. Next one is the core fundamentals, DOM API. So core fundamentals of building UI, of building design systems, or the fundamental of system designs to build complex, large scale apps. That is not, now this is not relevant to React specific application. Now it's relevant to the general field. You know, the UI engineers. And then you got is this core fundamentals, DOM API, something that I'm quite familiar, but I wanna know is what is based on your experience that web API for complex UI. So web APIs for complex UIs patterns. For complex UI patterns, observer via infinite scroll, mutation scroller, resize observer, exercise, virtualization, which is a technique as a way to load this application as it goes. And again, he's not talking about is any specific application per se. He's just talking about is how you can build all of this with that. Application states and network connectivity. Okay, application states and network connectivity. Okay, application state and network connectivity. Web applications performance. Web applications performance. And system design interview. Social media newsfeed. And system design interview, which is a social media app. Again, this is all of the things that companies are looking for, so you can see that you can fit inside of their entire mechanism. All right. Okay. Let's get it. Let's get into this. Because I don't want to receive any strike. This is something that I really get that. So I don't want to receive any strike. Let's get into this. Right now, you're not gonna see what I'm actually watching.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Front-End System Design Fundamentals Workshop. My name is Evgeny.
Yeah, you're not gonna. Actually, you can listen to. Actually, you can listen to.
So I've been working in the industry for the last decade, and I spent a good chunk of my career.
Because I don't want to actually show that, receive any strike. So, from the master is gonna complain about this, like, hey, you are actually learning. You're not allowed to record yourself while learning. Blah 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 blah. Okay, man, take it.
Here working on the complex UI apps. So I was working at the JetBrains for the 3 years, and currently I work as a front-end engineer at Meta. So
exactly. So so he worked at JetBrains 3 years, and now at Meta 2024. Okay.
When I was building this course, I was thinking that it would be useful to have some fundamental course that would explain how all these libraries and frameworks that we as a UI specialists use every day work. So the idea of this course is to give you this fundamental knowledge so that you can apply in everyday job or when you have the job interview. So you know how every library is designed, what are the API used for certain complex patterns. And before we start, let's understand what is the front-end system design. So if we split the application design into complex parts use every day, we have some fundamental course that would explain how all these libraries and frameworks that we as a UI specialists use every day work. So the idea of this.
Okay. So this introduction here. Okay. The idea is to understand how all of these libraries that UI specialists use works in our daily works for our jobs, or to provide it for our clients.
Course is to give you this fundamental knowledge so that you can apply in everyday job or when you have the job interview. So
exactly. Use exactly. The idea is to understand how all of these libraries UI. The idea is to understand how all of these library patterns, uh, how all of the library patterns that UI specialists use works for our daily jobs. Or to provide for our clients for our daily jobs, to provide for our clients, or this is another interesting, to provide for our clients, or on interview.
Know how every library is designed, what are the API used for a certain complex part.
To provide for our clients or an interview challenge, to an interview or an interview. So, but the idea here understanding the patterns that all of these libraries use. Exactly. Understand the pattern that all of these UI libraries use, as well as their APIs. Okay. To gain more perspective about it. Makes sense.
Patterns. And before we start,
But I think that this is something very narrow specific to companies and how you can build that right now.
let's understand what is the front-end system design. So if we split the application design into three parts, it's a backend, API, and the front-end. So to me, the front-end is about API communication, like how we communicate with the API and how we manage the data that we get from the server. So it's about how we store this data in a way that we can utilize the device resource efficiently, so we don't overuse the memory of the device. Front-end parts, it's a backend, API, and the front-end. So to me, the front-end is about API communication, like how we communicate with the API and how we manage the data that we get from the server. So it's about how we store this data in a way that we can utilize the device resource efficiently, so we don't overuse the memory of the device, and so on. It's also about how we're handling the complex user interactions. So, for instance, you need to display thousands of elements on a screen. How would you do that, having the limited RAM or having this small screen? And same applies to the asset management. So the complex apps tends to have multiple chunks that we need to load. So how would we load them efficiently so our application loads fast and all our web vitals metrics are on a high level? First, we'll start with the core fundamentals. So this is one of the most important section of the course because it will give you the exposure of how browser treats the HTML elements.
I love it. No, I love it, man. I love the way you express yourself. How browsers. In the case of Spanish, we say browsers as well. How browsers because we pronunciate is the my friend, not as an like a not like an ephemeral thing, not like an H, you know, not like a T on mountain, for example. It's like mountain or browser. Okay, go on.
How stacking context is connected to the formatting context and how everything is connected to the GPU. So
how the stacking context is connected to the composite layers.
we're going to look at the browser rendering cycle and also what are the composition layers and how can we utilize the GPU to optimize the rendering. So once we finish with core fundamentals, we're going to look at the DOM API. So it will be kind of a DOM API refresher because the DOM API for us is like a shovel. We need to know how to work with the low-level APIs to modify the DOM tree. So once we're done with the DOM, we're going to look at the Observer API. The Observer API is a very efficient tool to design complex patterns. And we're going to look with using the live coding exercises, how can we utilize the observer to build such complex patterns. The fourth section will be very like code heavy. So we're going to take a look at how virtualization works. And we also go into live code it from scratch so you can understand how everything is applied together. So once we finish with our code heavy part, we'll move to application state design. So we're going to check how can we design the state in a way that the search operation is efficient, the access operation is also efficient, and how can we utilize the browser storage API to offload the device memory. Then we'll move to network section. So we're going to look what are the protocols of communication available to us, and we're also going to take a look what are the ways of talking to server we have on the UI. And I'm going to discuss a very holy war topic, which is the REST vs GraphQL, and I'll provide my opinion on that. And then we'll finish up with web application performance. We're going to look at how can we optimize our JavaScript assets, CSS assets, images, and fonts. And the last section is kind of a bonus section. We're going to simulate the interview environment and try to design the Twitter-like application newsfeed.
Before we get started, what would you say the prerequisites of the course are? Like things that you should know prior to...
I think it's good to know how the browser renders the page, how it reads the HTML. Basic networking knowledge also would be good. And some basic JavaScript, so you don't need to be the very proficient. And you also need to have the latest Chrome browser, because we're not going to utilize...
You should be able to know how to create a HTML. You should be able to know how to manipulate DOM elements. You should be able to know how to create a hello world application. You should be able to create a basic hello world application or web page on the browser, plain, statically, as well as you should know how to do that using its like front-end toolings as well.
Any bundlers, and we're just going to run everything natively.
Okay.
That we're
okay. So here we are, my friend.
Application design into two. And before we start, let's understand what is the front-end system design. So if we split the application...
Okay. So according to you, okay, what about the resource, course slice? Box size, box type, inline block and anonymous, intrusive and restricted, box size, box type block, anonymous block, anonymous box, mathematic of blocks elements, inline elements, mathematic of inline elements, mathematic of inline elements, inline context, browser formatting context, element formatting context, element is not affected by formatting context, browser formatting context -1, element formatting context, in formatting context, okay. Formatting context, key ideas, flex with inline and block, time to become a browser. Normal flow. Position static. I think this is a quite interesting overview of how all of the stacking context. Reflow. And on the reflow, we actually pass through JavaScript style layout, paints, and composing. Initial pipeline. Switch to layout, paint, composing. Switch to paint, composing. Switch to paint, composing. And switch to paint, composing. Okay, okay. Chill, bro. Okay. Browser graphic API render layer. Okay, okay. But again, I'm just going to stick is with. Okay, this is evolution of user and backend system architecture. Introduction to backend architectures. Okay.
Hey, my name is Eric Reiner, and I'm a senior software engineer. In this Introduction Systems course, I try and introduce you to design principles around backend systems, how and what they are, when you can use them, and common systems like monoliths, distributed services, serverless, and hopefully empower you to take that process from zero all the way to production at any services, serverless, common systems like monoliths, to design principles around backend systems, how and what they are, when you can use them, and common systems like monoliths, distributed services, serverless, and hopefully empower you to take that process from zero all the way to production at any environment you're in. Now we're going to actually go into deeper detail around the, I like to call the main 4 principles. Welcome everybody to Introduction to Systems Design, focusing on architecture. This course is primarily focused on teaching and educating about architectural backend system principles, challenges, real-world applications, while offering a detailed understanding of when and how to implement them. There's going to be a lot of things that we talk about in this course. The main thing I want you to be able to take away as a developer is to be able to feel empowered on when and how to make back-end system architecture designs. If you've ever felt like you've ever been curious or ever wanted to build larger scale systems or build appropriate systems for specific problems, that's really a big part of this course and walking away from it. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce myself. Hello. My name is Eric Reinert, also known as Black Glasses on the interwebs. I'm a senior software engineer. I work at a company called Hippo, where I do a lot of the practices and methodologies that we're going to be talking about in the course today. I'm also a content creator. I stream and make videos on Twitch and YouTube under the Alt F4 stream. I'm a diagram and flowchart artist. I really enjoy building diagrams and flowcharts and taking my mental images of how I want to build something and putting them to paper. And I'm also a habitual problem solver. I really like putting myself into situations and trying to solve problems the best I can, learning through that experience, and it's been a big part of how I've grown as a developer. If you're curious about finding any of the content I create on the internet, I've got a few links here that you might be interested in. First off is the engineering blog. I have a company called Alta 4 LLC, and we build content creator tools as well as other software. And a big focus of this blog is to try and educate, and we build content creator tools as well as other software. And a big focus of this blog is to try and educate people in how we do things and how we tackle specific problems. It's updated often, and so if you're ever curious about how we solve problems as a company, it's a great resource. I also stream on Twitch, as I mentioned, Twitch TV/the Alt F4 stream. I stream weekdays and weekends. So if you're ever curious about any of the stuff I'm working on, or you want to learn more about what I'm doing, you should always hop in chat and say hello. I'm also on Twitter, although I don't really call it X. I do tweet on Twitter. So if you're ever curious about what I'm doing, or again, any of the projects I'm working on, you can check that out. As well as YouTube, where I upload a lot of videos about things that I'm working on and projects I have interest in and things like that. To give you a little bit of background of where I started and where I've come from, I first started my career with front end. I started doing that for about 2.5 years at a company called Media Temple, where I was heavily focused in building PHP front ends and slowly moving to JavaScript. This was a time when React was kind of just coming out, and so I was a part of that transition from moving like back-end front ends to fully client-based JavaScript front ends. A big part of what I do and my interests and how I kind of follow my career path is also that I'm really driven by my curiosity. And so after I did front end for a few years, I found myself wanting to take new steps into different parts of the software development stack. And one of those was back end, which is a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. I spent about 2.5 years working on back end systems. I worked at a company that was a startup where I was really in charge of building a lot of those systems and working with a lot of different new things like geolocation and hailing and all of this kind of stuff. After working in back end for 2.5 years, again, I wanted to follow my curiosity with a lot of my interests. And one of that interests was saying like, okay, I've worked in front end, I've worked in back end, now I'd like to know what it's like doing full stack. I spent 2.5 years doing that as well. I worked at another startup where I had a lot of responsibilities around prototyping and building out new systems to try and be as agile and quick as we possibly could to deliver things to market. So I had a lot of experience and got a lot of experience with understanding how to move fast, understanding how to build small systems and large systems. And that, again, led me towards the next phase of my career, which was I'd like to really learn and own this as more of a high-level engineer. And so after I left the full stack position, I started actually leaning more towards into DevOps and platform engineering, which I've been doing for the last 4.5 years. My current job is heavily focused on a lot of those challenges, whether it be how do we improve developer flows, how do we build new systems that developers use, as well as how do we build new systems that users use, and how do we join those together in a cohesive experience. And that really brought me to even where I am today, where I've slowly stepped away from implementation and writing code and become much more passionate about developing the architectures, the systems, the scalability of the systems, the robustness of them, which is really what brings us to the course that we're going to be going over today. I do have 2 existing courses on Front-End Masters if you are curious. And what's really great about these courses is they're all kind of themed around a lot of the same things. The first course is an introduction to DevOps for developers, where I talk about taking your first steps into DevOps, basically from a perspective of a developer. DevOps is a really thrown around word, and it's kind of not really well defined. And my goal in this course was really to help you walk away understanding what DevOps actually means for a company, how to use these practices and principles to help grow the developer experience as well as internal systems and things like that. And a lot of that course should help you understand how you define DevOps at a company. I also have a course called Enterprise Cloud Infrastructure. Again, I try and really work and educate around the things that I know. That's where I feel like I have most of my confidence. And so Enterprise Cloud Infrastructure was really the next step in my career, which was learning how to use DevOps and use it at a large scale, learning how to do things like set up large scale systems with GitOps, optimizing CI/CD workflows, standardizing strategies for an organization, and how to handle like cloud resource management and other things like that. And I think if you're interested in more of a scale, you want to learn how to take a company and grow it to a much higher automated process-based system. Enterprise Cloud Infrastructure is a really great course for that, and it should be something that you can take to almost any company and be confident that you can grow that company to the scale that it needs. So the first goal of this course is to define what back-end system architecture designs are. How do you understand how you're going to build something if you don't fully know what something is? And so the first thing I want to be able to do is help you define what these things are and what these tools are. From there, I want to help you define when to use back-end system architecture designs. There are situations where you might be in a circumstance where you do need to create designs for a specific problem that a company might need to solve. For services, monoliths, serverless, for development. If you've never built software before or anything like that, this might be a little difficult for you because a lot of this is high level, a lot of but I do think that it would help to have a basic understanding of software development. If you've never built software before or anything like that, this might be a little difficult for you because a lot of this is high level, a lot of this is conceptual, and kind of helps you get you in the mindset of how to solve these problems. So if you have a good understanding of software development, that'll definitely help. On top of that, a basic understanding of backends versus front ends. Again, we're going to be focusing very heavily on backends today. However, there will be a course on front-end masters in the near future about front-end systems designs that you guys should check out as well, which should pair really well with this course. So we're going to get into our first subject here, which is what are back-end architecture designs. And I loved this GIF because I feel like this is what happens a lot of times when people look at architecture or their design is, what am I looking at, right? It's a huge flow chart and it's incredibly confusing.
Leverage the fundamentals of modern SEO to empower search engines to index and represent your content in the best way possible. Join Mike North, consultant at LinkedIn, as a senior software engineer, as he covers the foundations of modern search engine optimization. He'll give you all the tips and techniques you need for your site to be easily found on Google, and teach you how to take advantage of advanced features on Facebook and Twitter to boost user engagement. By coding along with Mike in this workshop,
That was quite a lot. That was quite a lot. All right. Okay. So what happened here is that I'm going to only pick this one as a UI design system, as a UI engineer, top JavaScript engineer, particularly top lead UI engineer for this role. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And again, the whole point of today's video is to be able to articulate and describe what the front end is. So, by looking at this, which is what front end design is. All right.
Design into three parts. It's a backend API.
So our applications are split into three parts. Okay, so our applications are split into three parts. We got the backend, which is interesting that he put it that. The API, which is the surface. The backend is everything that is not accessible by the user. It's for internal company use, internal application use. The API that is now available to be consumed, okay, or this application programmable interface, okay, as well as the front end. So,
API and the front end. So to me, the front end is about.
Let me actually. But this is the introduction to backend architecture. Not gonna take that, but this is important to take a look at this resource. Okay, so backend architecture, like so, and that's how they actually promote their own context. So for IFNI, front end is about API communication.
API communication, like how we communicate with the API.
It's about API communication. Not only that, or how do we communicate with our API? Okay. But also, how do we manage the state that we get from the data? And I think this is something important. Fronting is about API communications. How do we communicate with our API? And then how do we store and manage the data that we get from the server? And how do we store and manage the data we get from the server?
And how we manage the data that we get from the server. So it's about how we store this data in a way that we can utilize the device resource efficiently.
And how do we store and manage the data from the server in an efficient way, or in an effective and efficient way? And there is a subtle difference between effective and efficient. So something that is effective doesn't necessarily mean that it's efficient. So efficient is something that is used the bare minimum resource to accomplish a task. Where now effective is that you do that task in the most fast way possible, but sometimes you're not efficient. So you're not use the resource in the most efficient way possible. So effective is goal oriented, whereas efficient is resource oriented. So there must be a combination between this. And I prefer sometimes to be more effective rather than efficient.
So we don't overuse the memory of the device and so on. It's also about how we're handling.
And also, is that how do we store, manage data? How do we store and manage the data that we get from the server in an effective and efficient way? Okay, no, that's a question mark. It's yes, that's a legitimate statement in an efficient way. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, yep. And also, is that how do we handle complex user interactions?
The complex user interactions. So, for instance, you need to
exactly. And how do we handle complex user interactions?
display thousands of elements on a screen. How would you do that having the limited RAM or having this small screen? For instance, you need to display thousands of elements on a screen. How would you do that having the limited RAM or having this small screen?
How do we handle complex user interaction? So, for example, showing thousands of elements in a small screen.
And same applies to the asset.
And as well as the asset management. How can we now send this content, API application, UI data management, user interface interactions, as well as asset management?
So the complex apps tends to have multiple chunks that we need to load.
Asset management. So complex apps needs to handle chunks of need to handle multiple chunks of data. So complex apps need to handle multiple chunks of assets as we load them. JavaScript, it can be JavaScript, CSS, HTML, and that kind of thing.
So how would we load them efficiently so our application loads fast and all our web vitals metrics are on a high level? First, we'll start with the core fundamentals. So this is one of the most important section of the course because it will give you the exposure of how browser treats the HTML elements, how stacking context is of the course because it will and all our web vitals metrics chunks that we need to load. So how would we load them efficiently so our application loads fast and all our web vitals metrics are on a high level?
To keep our web vitals metrics healthy, to keep a healthy web vital metrics.
First, we'll start with the core fundamentals. So this is one of the most important section of the course because it will give you the exposure of how browser treats the HTML elements, how stacking context is connected to the formatting context, and how everything is connected to the GPU. So we're going to look at the browser rendering cycle and also to the asset management. So the complex apps tends to have multiple chunks that we need to load. So how would we load them efficiently so our application loads fast and all our web vitals metrics are on a high level? First, we'll start with the core fundamentals. So this is one of the most important section of the course because it will give you the exposure of how browser treats the HTML elements, how stacking context is connected to the formatting context, and how everything is connected to the GPU. So we're going to look at the browser rendering cycle and one of the most important our application loads fast and all our web vitals metrics are on a high level. First, we'll start with the core fundamentals. So this is one of the most important section of the course because it will give you the exposure of how browser treats the HTML elements, how stacking context is connected to the formatting context, and how everything is connected to
So in the core concept, in the core fundamentals, we are going to see how the browser works with the HTML.
browser.
How the browser treats the HTML. We're going to expose ourselves. Okay, in the core fundamentals we're going to expose ourselves how the browser treats the HTML.
Treats the HTML elements, how stake.
We're going to expose ourselves. We're going to expose to how the browser treats the HTML, how stacking context is connected to the formatting context, something that I don't know exactly. That's good. How stacking context okay, how stacking context is connected to the formatting context, is connected to the formatting context. Okay,
Stacking context is connected to the formatting context, and how
to the formatting,
how browser treats the HTML elements, how stacking context is connected to the formatting context, and how everything is connected to the GPU.
And how such contexts are connected to the GPU.
So we're going to look at the browser rendering cycle.
How such contexts are connected to the GPU, the browser rendering cycle, something that I'm not quite familiar. I am familiar with the critical rendering path. I don't know if that is the same of the browser rendering cycle. The critical rendering path is somewhat similar to that, but I just know is the name or how now the browser translate all of this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript into pixel on the screen. Okay.
And also, what are the composition layers, and how can we utilize the GPU to optimize
the browser rendering API, as well as the composition layers, and how can we use the GPU to optimize the rendering? How can we use the GPU to optimize the rendering? Okay.
the rendering? So once we finish with core fundamentals, we're going to look at the DOM API. So it will be kind of a DOM API refresher, because the DOM API for us is like a shovel. We need to know how to work with the low-level APIs to modify the DOM tree.
Like a shovel. The DOM API is like a shovel. You mentioned that, to me it's like es una pala. Okay, here's the stick, here's the shovel. Okay. Le lanzan una pala, yeah. Pasa, boludo. DOM API. And also we're going to look at, this is the core fundamentals. The DOM API. Okay. In the DOM API is a refresher.
So once we're done with DOM, we're going to look at the
The DOM API is a refresher of DOM API is like a shovel.
observer API. It's like a shovel. We need to know how to work with the low-level APIs to
The DOM API is like a shovel. We need to know how to work with this API.
modify the DOM tree.
Exactly. And modify the DOM tree. But that's what it is, man. Yeah, it's like a shovel. You're hey, I found the element.
So once we're done with DOM, we're going to look at the observer API. The observer API is a very efficient tool to design complex patterns. And
Exactly. In the core fundamentals, we're gonna see this. Now in here, now web API and for complex UI patterns. Now the web API for complex UI design patterns. For example, observer API.
we're going to look with using the live coding exercises.
Observer API, mutation observer, and resize observer.
How can we utilize the observer to build such complex patterns? The fourth section.
How can we use the observer API? Exactly. How can we use the observer API to build complex UI patterns? In an efficient way.
Will be using the live coding exercises. How can we utilize the observer to build such complex patterns? The fourth section will be using the live coding exercise. Observer API is a very efficient tool to design complex patterns, and we're going to look with using the live coding exercises. How can we utilize the observer to build such complex patterns? The fourth section will be very code heavy, so we're gonna take a look at how virtualization works, and we're also going to live code it from scratch, so you can understand how everything is applied together.
The virtualization. Okay.
So once we finish with our code heavy part, we'll move to application state design. So we're gonna check how can we design the state in a way that the search operation is efficient, the access operation is also efficient, and how can we utilize the browser storage API to offload the device memory.
Yeah, to offload the device.
Then we'll move to operation is efficient, the access operation is also efficient. We'll move to application state design. So we're gonna check how can we design the state in a way that the search operation is efficient, the access operation is also efficient, and how can we utilize the browser storage API to offload the device memory.
Application is time exactly. And then application state design. Application state design. Which is sourcing access optimization, browser storage API, and memory offloading. Search and access optimization. Search and access optimization. Browser storage API overview. Browser storage APIs overview. Or local storage, and the memory offloading. The memory offloading. And 6 is network. Yep, 6 is network. Network, like so. What? Oh my god, for real? There you got it. Network, which is introduction to browser networking protocols overview. Introduction to browser networking. Intro to browser networking protocols overview. Protocols overview. Talking to server, long polling, WebSocket, and SSA. What the F is this? Wait, what? Talking to a server. Long polling, WebSocket. Long polling, WebSocket, something that I'm quite familiar, but is with socket.io and SSE, as well as REST and Graph and REST and GraphQL. And his opinion about it: web application performance, which is now the web app performance, which is now asset management, aka asset management. Which is JavaScript, CSS, image, and other assets. Come on. What do you think you do? Which is JavaScript, CSS, JavaScript, CSS, and image, and other assets. And then finally, but not least, is the bonus section, which is now building a
images and fonts. And
fonts as well, just fonts.
the last section is kind of a bonus section. We're going to simulate the interview environment and try to design the Twitter-like application newsfeed.
Before we get started,
And here is this. Exactly. And develop is a system design social news feed. This is more like, but all of the thing here is to understand is all of this particular pattern, and especially the core fundamentals as a way to build now this application. So that'll be all for this video. Take care. Bye-bye.